The massive warship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Its hull stretched for miles, covered in weapons that had conquered 1,000 worlds. Commander Vex stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back. He looked at the blue planet on his screen with all 6 of his eyes. "Another primitive world to add to the Empire," he said. His voice echoed through the bridge like grinding metal. The Galactic Empire had ruled for 10,000 years. No species had ever refused their demands. No planet had ever won against their fleet. The ship's scanner beeped. "Commander, we detect artificial satellites around the 3rd planet. The species has basic technology." Vex laughed. It was a sound like breaking glass. "Basic technology means nothing. Send the standard message." The communication officer pressed several buttons. The message went out in all frequencies. "People of Earth, you now belong to the Galactic Empire. Surrender your weapons. Prepare tribute of half your resources. Any resistance will result in destruction." On Earth, the message played on every screen, every radio, every device. In the United Nations building, President Wilson stood before the Emergency Council. Military leaders from every nation sat around the massive table. General Smith from America, Marshal Ivan from Russia, Commander Lee from China, and dozens more. "They want us to surrender," Wilson said. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with determination. "They think we're just another weak planet." General Smith stood up. "Mr. President, they don't know humans. We've fought each other for thousands of years. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars. We don't surrender." Marshal Ivan nodded. "For once, I agree with the American. If we must die, we die fighting." Commander Lee pulled up a hologram. "Our satellites show their ship. It's big, but it's alone. They're overconfident." Wilson looked around the room. These leaders had been enemies just yesterday. Now they stood united. "Then we show them what humans can do. Operation Defiance begins now." Back on the alien warship, Commander Vex waited. Most planets surrendered within minutes. Hours passed. No response came from Earth. "Commander," the scanner officer said, "the humans are moving their primitive vessels. They have nuclear weapons." Vex laughed again. "Nuclear weapons? How quaint. Those haven't been effective in galactic warfare for 5,000 years. Our shields can—" An alarm screamed across the bridge. Hundreds of missiles launched from Earth. Not just missiles everything. Old satellites turned into ramming ships. The International Space Station fired improvised weapons. Even civilian spacecraft aimed themselves at the warship. "Shields up," Vex commanded. The first nuclear missile hit the shields and exploded. The shield held. The second hit. The third. The 10th. The 100th. The shield began to flicker. "Impossible," Vex shouted. "These are primitive weapons." His science officer's tentacles shook with fear. "Commander, they're not trying to break through. They're overloading our shield generators with constant impacts. It's actually working." On Earth, every nation had launched everything they had. In hidden bunkers, President Wilson watched the displays. "Phase 2, he ordered. General Smith picked up his radio. "All fighters, launch now." From every military base on Earth, fighters took off. Not advanced fighters, old ones, new ones, even museum pieces that had been quickly repaired. Thousands of aircraft headed for space, pushed beyond their limits by brave pilots who knew they wouldn't come back. Commander Vex watched his screens in disbelief. "They're sending atmospheric fighters into space. They'll die." "Commander, their pilots are manually ramming our sensor arrays. They're laughing as they die." The human pilots knew their mission. Each plane that hit took out sensors, weapons, communication arrays. They sang their national anthems as their cockpits cracked. They smiled as they gave their lives for Earth. Commander Vex grabbed his command chair as another impact shook his ship. His perfect warship, which had conquered 1,000 worlds, was being taken apart by a species that had barely reached their own moon. "Sir," his officer said quietly, "perhaps we should reconsider these humans. They're not like the others." Vex stared at Earth. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he'd never experienced before. Fear. Commander Vex paced the bridge as damage reports flooded in. Half his sensors were gone. A quarter of his weapons were offline. His unstoppable warship was being slowly crippled by a species that shouldn't even have space travel. "Launch the ground invasion," he ordered. "If they want to fight with primitive weapons, we'll crush them on their own soil." Drop pods launched from the warship like deadly rain. Each pod carried 50 warrior drones machines built for conquest. They'd taken entire planets in days. Earth would be no different. Or so Vex thought. The first pods landed in New York City. The drones emerged, their metal bodies gleaming, plasma weapons ready. They expected panic. They expected fleeing civilians. Instead, they found Tom, a construction worker, swinging a wrecking ball from his crane directly into their formation. They found Maria, a taxi driver, ramming her yellow cab at full speed into their ranks. They found old Joe, a veteran from 3 wars, on a rooftop with a hunting rifle, picking off drones one by one. "This is our city," Tom shouted as his wrecking ball crushed another drone. "You want it? Come and take it." In Moscow, the drones landed in the middle of winter. They had heating systems, advanced armor, perfect tactical programming. They didn't expect Boris, a local farmer who had filled the streets with water that turned to ice. They didn't expect Anna, a chemistry teacher who had turned household cleaners into explosives. They didn't expect the entire population to charge at them with anything they could find: hockey sticks, kitchen knives, even wooden chairs. In Tokyo, the invasion pods landed during rush hour. The drones calculated it was perfect timing: maximum casualties, maximum fear. But office worker Tanaka organized his entire building. They dropped printers from windows. Secretary Yuki used fire extinguishers to blind drone sensors. Even the usually polite salarymen fought with their briefcases. Commander Vex watched the tactical displays in growing confusion. Why aren't they running? Every species runs when they see our drones. His tactical officer's 3 eyes blinked rapidly. "Commander, they're running toward our forces. The humans are actually charging at our drones with primitive weapons." In rural Texas, the drones found something even worse. Farmer Bill had been waiting his whole life for this moment. "I told Martha them aliens would come someday," he said, loading his shotgun. His neighbors had laughed at his bunker, his weapon collection, his constant preparation. They weren't laughing now. The drones advanced through the farmland in perfect formation. Then the ground exploded. Bill had planted homemade mines in his fields. The surviving drones looked for the source and found an entire town of armed farmers, shooting from trucks, barns, even trees. "Yeehaw!" Bill shouted. "Welcome to Earth." In London, the drones faced a different problem. British Dave, a pub owner, had organized the strangest resistance. Every pub in the city had become a trap. Drones would enter, following human heat signatures, only to find the buildings rigged to collapse. The humans would escape through tunnels they dug between basements, popping up to attack from behind. "Bit rude to invade during tea time," Dave said, throwing a Molotov cocktail made with his most expensive whiskey. "But we've dealt with worse. Remember the Blitz? This is nothing." Back on the warship, Commander Vex's 4 arms shook with rage. "Send more drones." "Send them all, Commander," his advisor said carefully. "We're losing 1,000 drones for every human city block we take. At this rate, I don't care. No one resists the Empire." But Earth wasn't done. In India, Dr. Patel had weaponized spices, creating clouds that clogged drone filters. In Brazil, street fighters used their soccer skills to kick improvised bombs with deadly accuracy. In Egypt, historians led the drones into ancient tombs filled with traps that still worked after thousands of years. Every country, every city, every town fought differently. But they all fought. Children threw rocks. Grandmothers poured boiling oil from windows. Even hospital patients rolled their wheelchairs into battle. President Wilson watched the reports from his bunker. General Smith stood beside him, covered in dust from a collapsed ceiling. "Sir, we're losing people. Millions are dying." "But we're not surrendering," Wilson replied. "And look at this." He pointed to the tactical display. "The alien losses are even worse. They expected sheep. They found wolves." On the warship, Commander Vex received a priority message from his home world. The Empire was watching. Other conquered planets were watching. And for the first time in 10,000 years, they were seeing the Empire struggle. "Commander," his communication officer said, "the humans are broadcasting something." On every screen appeared a simple message: Earth doesn't kneel. Commander Vex stood in his war room, surrounded by holographic displays showing the disaster on Earth. 3 days had passed since the invasion began. 3 days of unexpected losses and impossible resistance. "Show me the numbers again," he ordered. His tactical officer pulled up the data. "We've lost 60% of our ground forces. The humans have lost millions, but they keep fighting. Sir, they're not breaking." Vex slammed his primary arms on the table. "Every species breaks. Fear is universal." "Not for humans, apparently," the officer said quietly. On Earth, the resistance had evolved. In Berlin, engineer Hans had figured out the drone's communication frequency. "If we can jam this signal," he told his team of college students, "they'll lose coordination." Within hours, every radio station on Earth was broadcasting interference on that exact frequency. The drones started bumping into each other, firing at shadows, walking in circles. President Wilson met with his council in the bunker. Half the seats where empty those leaders had died fighting. But new faces had joined them. Lisa, a teenager who had organized the youth resistance. Marcus, a gang leader who now led urban guerrilla warfare. Even old Betty, who ran a network of grandmothers sharing alien weak points they'd discovered. "We're hurting them," General Smith reported. "But we need to do more than defend. We need to attack their ship." Lisa raised her hand. "What if we don't attack it? What if we board it?" Everyone turned to look at her. "Think about it," she continued. "They expect us to keep throwing missiles. They don't expect us to be crazy enough to fly up there and knock on their door." Marshal Ivan laughed. "I like this girl. But how do we get there?" Marcus leaned forward. "My boys have been stealing drone parts. We've been building something. It's ugly, but it flies." Commander Lee pulled up satellite images. "We've been doing the same in China. If we combine our resources, double quotes, Wilson stood up. Do it. Operation Crazy Human begins now." Around the world, humans had been learning. Every destroyed drone was studied. Every piece of alien technology was examined. In garages and workshops, humans did what they did best. They adapted. Bob, a mechanic from Detroit, had figured out the alien power source. "It's just fancy electricity," he told his team. "I can hotwire this." In Japan, Yuki had decoded the alien computer language. "It's actually simpler than Windows," she said. "Much easier to hack." In South Africa, James had reverse-engineered the alien armor. "Hit it here, here, and here," he marked the weak points. "It splits like a coconut." Within days, humans had built the ugliest fleet in galactic history. Ships made from car parts, held together with duct tape, powered by alien cores they barely understood. No two ships looked the same. Some had spoilers from race cars. Others had horns that played music. Commander Vex saw them launching on his screens. What are those ... things? I believe the humans call them hot rods, sir. They're flying scrap metal. Our point defense will destroy them easily. But the human ships didn't fly like military vessels. They spun, they looped, they flew backwards. Their pilots were kids who'd grown up on video games. Stunt pilots who'd spent their lives defying physics. And street racers who thought traffic laws were suggestions. Mike, leading the first wave, broadcast on all channels. Hey, aliens. Knock, knock. Who's there? His wingman added. Humans. They all shouted. And we don't use doors. They crashed directly into the warship's hangar bay. Not a landing, a controlled crash. The ships exploded on impact, but the humans were already out, wearing makeshift armor and carrying weapons that shouldn't exist, human guns modified with alien parts. Commander Vex watched his internal cameras in disbelief. The humans were inside his ship. They were painting graffiti on his walls. They were. Were they playing music? Sir, they're heading for multiple critical systems simultaneously. They're not using any known tactical pattern. Because we don't have a pattern. Mike shouted, somehow having hacked into their communications. We're making this up as we go. The humans split into groups. Some headed for the engine room. Others went for life support. A group of teenagers somehow found the cafeteria and started a food fight with alien rations. But the main group, led by Wilson himself, who had insisted on coming, headed for the bridge. Sir, they're approaching. Should we seal the bridge? Commander Vex stood tall. No, I want to see these humans myself. I want to understand what makes them so stupid and brave. The bridge doors exploded. Not from weapons, from a car that Bob had somehow driven through the ship's corridors. Knock, knock, President Wilson said, stepping through the smoke. Who's there? Vex asked, despite himself. Humanity, Wilson replied. And we're here to talk about your surrender. Asterisk Commander Vex stared at the humans standing on his bridge. President Wilson stood at the front, covered in alien blood and motor oil. Behind him were fighters from every nation, some holding improvised weapons, others carrying alien tech they'd modified, and one grandmother who'd somehow brought a rolling pin. Surrender? Vex laughed. You're outnumbered 1,000 to 1. My reinforcements are coming. You've only delayed your doom. Wilson smiled. Are they? Check your communications. Vex gestured to his communication officer, who worked his console with trembling tentacles. Commander, I can't reach the fleet, or the Empire, or ... anyone. That's because Yuki here, Wilson pointed to the young woman with a laptop duct-taped to alien hardware, uploaded a virus to your system. Every ship in your empire is currently playing human music on repeat. I believe the current song is Never Gonna Give You Up, across the galaxy. On the Empire's throne world, the Supreme Leader listened in horror as ancient human music echoed through his palace. Every screen showed dancing humans. Every military channel played the same song. The virus had spread through their entire network in seconds. Back on Vex's ship, the commander's 6 eyes widened. Impossible. Our systems are quantum encrypted. Yeah, about that, Bob the mechanic said. Your quantum computer? It's basically a fancy calculator. My daughter's gaming PC has more processing power. Your technology is advanced, sure, but it's also old. Really old. You've been using the same systems for thousands of years without updating. Yuki nodded. No security patches, no firewall updates, nothing. It's like you're running alien Windows 95. I could have hacked this with my phone. Commander Vex's tactical officer suddenly shouted, Sir, the humans on Earth. They're broadcasting something. A main screen lit up. All across Earth, humans were celebrating. But not just celebrating, they were teaching. In Moscow, Anna, the chemistry teacher, was showing other conquered worlds how to make explosives from household items. In Texas, Bill was demonstrating guerrilla tactics. In Tokyo, office workers explained how to turn everyday objects into weapons. To all enslaved worlds, President Wilson said, his voice now broadcasting across the galaxy. The Empire is not invincible. They're not gods. They're bullies who've never faced real resistance. Earth stands with you. Rise up. Commander Vex watched his tactical displays in horror. On 100 worlds, slaves were attacking their overseers. On 1,000 worlds, populations were refusing to work. The Empire's economy began collapsing in real time. This is impossible, Vex muttered. We've ruled for 10,000 years. And that's your problem, Wilson said. You've been doing the same thing for 10,000 years. You never adapted. You never improved. You never expected someone to say no. General Smith stepped forward. Humans have been fighting each other forever. We've gotten really good at it. But we've also learned something you haven't, how to unite against a common enemy. The ship shook. Vex's displays showed more human ships arriving. Not the pretty, uniform fleets of the Empire, but the chaotic, improvised armada of Earth. Ships made from buses. Planes welded to rockets. Even what looked like a floating restaurant. Sir, Vex's advisor whispered. The Empire is calling. They want to negotiate. On the screen appeared the Supreme Leader himself, his ancient face showing fear for the first time in millennia. Humans of Earth, we wish to discuss terms. Wilson looked at his fellow humans. Lisa the teenager, Marcus the gang leader, Betty the grandmother, Bob the mechanic, and all the others who'd fought impossible odds. They nodded. Here are our terms, Wilson said. 1. The Empire withdraws from Earth immediately. 2. All enslaved worlds are freed. 3. The Empire pays reparations to every world they've conquered. That would destroy us. The Supreme Leader protested. Should have thought of that before you invaded Earth, Betty said, waving her rolling pin. We weren't bothering anyone. We were just here, minding our own business, arguing about pineapple on pizza and whether cats or dogs were better. And for the record, Mike added, it's dogs. It's cats. Yuki argued. Even in victory, humans couldn't agree on everything. But that was their strength. They thought differently, fought differently, and never, ever gave up. Commander Vex looked at the humans, then at his displays showing the Empire crumbling. How? How did you do this? Wilson walked up to the alien commander. You want to know our secret? We're not afraid to die. We're not afraid to fail. We're not afraid to try the impossible. And most importantly, he gestured to his mixed group of humans, all different colors, cultures, and backgrounds, united in their ridiculous victory. We're too stubborn to know when we're supposed to lose. Six months had passed since humanity's impossible victory. Earth had changed, but not in the way anyone expected. Instead of conquering the galaxy themselves, humans did something that confused every other species. They went back to their normal lives. President Wilson stood in the renovated United Nations building, now the United Earth Assembly. Representatives from freed worlds filled seats that once held only humans. The galaxy watched in confusion as humans argued about coffee brands while teaching former slaves how to build governments. The Zephron delegation wishes to know, an alien ambassador asked, why you refuse to lead the new Galactic Council. You defeated the Empire. By all laws of conquest, you should rule. Wilson chuckled. Have you seen us try to agree on anything? Last week, we spent 3 days debating whether hot dogs or sandwiches. We'd be terrible galactic rulers. On the former Empire warship, now converted into Earth's first space station, Commander Vex worked alongside Bob the mechanic. The defeated commander had expected execution or imprisonment. Instead, the humans had offered him a job. "I don't understand your species," Vex said, helping Bob install a coffee machine in what used to be the weapons control room. "You show mercy to enemies, argue constantly among yourselves, and care more about something called Wi-Fi than galactic domination." Bob tightened a bolt. "That's because we've learned something important. Today's enemy might be tomorrow's friend. Besides, you make great coffee with those 4 arms." Around Earth, alien technology mixed with human creativity in unexpected ways. In New York, Tom the construction worker used anti-gravity plates to build impossible skyscrapers. In Tokyo, Yuki had combined alien computers with video games, creating virtual worlds that amazed even advanced species. But the biggest change was in the galaxy itself. The freed worlds didn't know how to be free. They'd been slaves for so long, they'd forgotten how to think for themselves. So humans did what humans did best. They shared everything. Not just technology or tactics, but ideas, music, art, food, especially food. On the planet Kepler, former slaves learned to play jazz. On Proxima, they discovered pizza. On Wolf, they learned the human art of complaining about weather while doing nothing about it. Marcus, the former gang leader, now ran an academy teaching urban warfare to species who'd forgotten how to fight. "The secret ain't the weapons," he told his alien students. "It's the attitude. You gotta believe you can win, even when you can't." Lisa, the teenager who'd suggested boarding the warship, started an intergalactic youth movement. Young aliens who'd never known freedom learned human games, human dreams, and most importantly, human stubbornness. "Adults tell you something's impossible?" she said to a crowd of young aliens. "Do it anyway. That's the human way." But not everyone was happy. In the depths of space, remnants of the Empire plotted revenge. They gathered their remaining forces, planning one final attack on Earth. The attack came on a Tuesday. Hundreds of Empire ships dropped out of hyperspace, ready for vengeance. They expected Earth to panic. Instead, they found something worse, the entire galaxy standing with humanity. "This is Ambassador Zara from Kepler," came the first message. "Earth stands with us, so we stand with Earth." "The free worlds of Proxima are here," came another. "We learned courage from humans. Time to use it." Ship after ship appeared. Not the perfect fleets of the old empire, but the chaotic, diverse armada of free worlds. Ships painted with human-inspired art. Ships playing music from dozens of cultures. Ships piloted by species who'd learned that freedom was worth dying for. Commander Vex, standing on Earth's space station, opened a channel to his former comrades. "Brothers, stop this. I've lived among humans for months. They're insane, yes. They put pineapple on pizza, yes. But they also showed mercy to me, their enemy. They taught me something the Empire never did how to choose. The Empire forces hesitated. They'd never had a choice before. President Wilson broadcasted to everyone. You can choose to fight. We're ready for that. We've got teenagers with duct-taped weapons, grandmothers with rolling pins, and Bob's got a new coffee machine he's turned into some kind of cannon. But you can also choose peace. You can choose freedom. You can choose to join us in making the galaxy weird, chaotic, and wonderful." One by one, the Empire ships powered down their weapons. One by one, they chose freedom. Years later, historians would call it the human revolution. Not because humans conquered the galaxy, but because they infected it with their chaos, their creativity, and their refusal to give up. Earth became not the capital of a new empire, But something better, the galaxy's weird uncle, who taught everyone that being different was okay, that arguing about trivial things was normal, and that sometimes the best way to win a war was to be too stubborn to lose. And somewhere in space, on a station that used to be a warship, Commander Vex served coffee to humans and aliens alike. Still confused, but somehow happy. "I still don't understand humans," he said to Bob. Bob grinned. "Neither do we, buddy. Neither do we." The galaxy was free. It was chaotic. It was imperfect. It was human. And that was exactly how it should be. Asterisk.